know you would like to some kind of way extract something out of this bottle, all right, that's not there. It's not there. You all speculate and create things, and then you want people to respond to it. So you can ask the bottle, but don't ask me.
Hello, and welcome to all of you out there in podcast land. My name is Clint Childers, and sitting really, really far away from me is the Georgia Peach, Mitch Davis.
Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, we're doing a little long distance show this week. I'm here in Nashville, and Clint is down in Arkansas.
Yep, I am back in the great state of Arkansas. Have a little family illness I had to come home for. It is 11:27 p.m. Central Time, but we are so dedicated to giving you guys great college football content that we just had to do the show.
Oh, absolutely. We could not stay away. Could not postpone. Yeah, it's going to be a good episode. We're going to have fun with it.
All right. Well, as always, write to us at askthebottlecast@gmail.com. Make sure and always follow us on Twitter. Shoot us a tweet every now and then at askthebottle. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Go ahead and leave us a rating on iTunes if you would. That would be awesome. Leave us a review. Tell us how we're doing. And Mitch, I got to ask you again, man, after week 4, how does it feel to be a Georgia Bulldog?
It gets better week by week, and I hope it stays that way. It was really a crazy week, and I honestly, it's crazy to me that Georgia was one of the few teams that's coming out undefeated.
Yeah, man, it's y'all in Bama holding it down.
Yeah, I did not think we'd be living in that world in week 4, but here we are.
Yeah, well, week 4 was kind of like that, the big upset that never really panned out week. Lots of potential for some top teams to go down, but it just never really happened.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Some folks might call that blue balls, but we'd never say anything like that on this podcast.
No, never. Of course not.
What did you think of College Game Day from Times Square, man?
I thought it was just an interesting way to switch it up. I'm sure maybe it was because, they couldn't really settle on a game. There wasn't, couldn't find a reason to go one game or the other. But, I mean, it was cool. It was a change. It seemed like a lot of people showed up.
Yeah, they had a really good turnout. I was not expecting that at all from them.
Yeah.
Because you don't think of New York City as being like a college football town, but, I mean, they came out in droves to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool to, see people being like, I'm like, repping Tennessee, I'm repping Florida in the Big Apple and stuff. It's cool to remember that, people move up there, they're still fans, and they probably feel a little left out, and then something like that happens, and they get to come and, do the whole thing with game day. So, yeah, it was cool overall. I liked it.
Yeah, I saw one lone guy with a hog shirt on in there, man. Keep it, hold it down, man. Hold it down.
Seriously, rep it.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get in some football then. I know we need to kind of get into that. Let's talk about some games around the nation that happened for a while. Number 4, Penn State and Iowa played. That was a fantastic. Did you watch any of this game?
Yeah, this game was unbelievable.
Absolutely.
I cannot believe the way it ended still.
Absolutely. Number 4, Penn State wins 21 over Iowa, 19. I just want to say how awesome it is that, there's a children's hospital next door to Iowa Stadium. How awesome it is that they all turn around and wave before every game to the kids. That is the best.
That's incredible. I did not know that.
Yeah, that is awesome. The kids look out the window and everybody in the stadium turns and waves. It's so awesome.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool. No, wow.
Yeah, some things are just bigger than football,
No kidding. Yeah. That's nuts.
Well, cool. Well, this was the best game of the day, like we had talked about. Real quick, I got to ask you, is Saquon Barkley the best college football player in the country?
He certainly made a case for it. I was blown away. I haven't followed him much, and I definitely paid for that because he is incredibly fun to watch.
Yeah, no kidding, man. 358 all-purpose yards against Iowa.
That's a season for some people.
Yeah, no kidding. That is insane. And Iowa, on their side, they came out with a very balanced passing attack. They had 6 individual receivers. They all caught passes and had at least 10 yards on the day. It's pretty good for them.
Absolutely.
But the game came down to a late fourth quarter drive by Penn State. They were down 19-15, and a touchdown pass on the very last play of the game would win it 21-19.
It was just insane. I watched most of the fourth quarter, and just to show you're right. I think best game of the day for sure. I was pretty, I know Iowa lost C.J. Beathard last year. I know he was kind of the big guy. It was crazy to see them hang tough against a really good Penn State team, and it was just It was a great game. Unbelievable.
Yeah, Nate Stanley, the new quarterback this year, came out there and slung the ball pretty well. We talked about their passing attack, but it's just Trace McSorley, Saquon Barkley. They've got playmakers on the Penn State offense right now, and it's just they're hard to stop.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the difference, is those guys who are just next level. But yeah.
All right. Well, Iowa loses another heartbreaker, and Penn State's going to hang out at the number 4 spot for this week on the AP poll. Yeah.
That's wild.
Well, let's move into the ACC. North Carolina State went into Tallahassee and played the number 12 Florida State Seminoles, the then number 12 Florida State Seminoles, I should say, beat them 27-21. And this is the first time, Mitch, that Florida State has started out 0-2 since 1989.
Man, and what a strange route they've had.
Yeah,
to having that record,
Yeah, with the whole, they started out, they lost, obviously, to Alabama, and then they had, the long delay because of the hurricanes.
Right.
And now they come home to play, and, you almost expect it. You have to relocate, you have to practice in a strange facility, guys' rhythms gets thrown off. It's just a whole deal.
Yeah, absolutely. They got a new quarterback out there.
Yeah. Well, NC State also didn't make things easy for them because that defense came locked and loaded, man.
Mm-hmm.
They held the FSU running game to just 104 yards all day. And Francois going down, it hurt Florida State a lot worse than I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
Because James Blackman, the new quarterback, he's serviceable, but he's just that. He went 22 for 38 for 278 yards and a score.
When we talked about his size, he's 6'5", and he's listed at 185. That's like soaking wet. I mean, dude is skinny.
He is bag of bones, exactly. The North Carolina State defensive end Bradley Chubb, is he any relation to Nick Chubb?
Yes, actually, I looked that up, and they're cousins.
Oh, well, their name is spelled the same, so I thought. Maybe.
Yeah, the two B's is a dead giveaway, I feel like.
Well, anyways, Bradley Chubb took this game into his own hands. Listen to this stat line: 5 solo tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks.
Ooh, that's
he lived in the backfield. Yeah, he got himself comfortable back there. And Chubb would also spit on the FSU midfield logo after the game.
Yikes!
A little bit of disrespect for you.
That's take it or leave it. Yeah, it was. We saw them hold up against South Carolina. I think that they were definitely poised to come in and take on a ranked team that was a bit beaten up, a bit maybe emotionally scarred by that Alabama game, and just pull it out. I kind of had a feeling about it, but it's pretty neat to see him pull it out.
Yeah, it is for sure. And they've been on the cusp for a while, so it's good to kind of see them start to have some success against some perennially, blue blood programs. And I think kind of right now we're seeing a beaten and battered Knowles team right now. It might not be a good year for Florida State. It's going to be interesting to see how Jimbo handles the pressure of possibly being a losing team this year.
Absolutely, you obviously there's kind of a short list of coaches that can sort of afford that, and I definitely think he's one of them. But it's it's a year of all kinds of adversity for them, and the schedule is not very easy going forward. They got Miami, they got Louisville, and then they're at Clemson in November. So, and then of course that dreaded Florida game at the end of the season. So they're going to have some tough games. I wouldn't be surprised. They're going to be right on the cusp of bowl eligibility, I feel like. I think there's definitely a shot of that.
Yeah, it might be weird to kind of see Florida State in the GoDaddy Bowl or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Meineke Car Care or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a tough loss.
Those companies don't sue us for.
Yeah, no copyright infringement there. It's a tough loss for them, but like we said, good to see NC State have success. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to what I thought should have been the game day game. Personally, I think maybe Game Day kind of threw a little bit of shade at the Big 12 for this one, and this one actually ended up being a fantastic game. I would have loved to hear Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit call it, but that's all right. Mm-hmm. Number 16 TCU heads into Stillwater to face number 6 Oklahoma State and beats them 44-31.
And they beat them. They were in the driver's seat.
Oh yeah. No. It was a 13-point victory, which seems good, but the margin was never that close.
Definitely. And I feel like we see Oklahoma State. It's like they just come a little further every year, and then they just drop a game like this, and it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this was a winnable game for them, but I mean, it's got to make, I know I mentioned this, and I'm sure it's a very slight, but it's got to make you feel a little better to see, a team that came in and beat Arkansas at home, right?
Yeah. Beat them in Fayetteville. It does. You're right. I wasn't feeling crazy about that, but after this week, I definitely feel a little bit more justified. To me, TCU looks like a 10-win team easy right now.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I think absolutely. The schedule going forward, it gets pretty tough at the end with Texas, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, and Baylor, but they got a shot, man. I don't think there's a single game on their schedule that's not winnable.
Oh yeah. Well, let me fly through these stats real quick. Kenny Hill.
Maybe Oklahoma, actually.
The TCU Oklahoma game's looking better every week.
Yeah, no kidding.
Kenny Hill played okay. The real offensive star for the Horned Frogs was running back Darius Anderson. 26 carries for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Goodness
That's a great
gracious.
performance. Yeah, the TCU defense stood up. They held Heisman hopeful Mason Rudolph in check, 3 sacks and a forced fumble, and holding Oklahoma State to just 33 points. I mean, that's impressive in its own right there.
Oh, absolutely.
So TCU is going to climb up all the way to number 9 on the AP poll this week, while Oklahoma State falls down to number 15 from number 6.
That sounds about right.
That sounds about right. They didn't play well at home, had a good home crowd, and, I mean, what can you say?
Yeah, well, we'll look to see if TCU can keep it up. I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and hang out in the Big 12 for just a little while longer. Let's talk about a game that we did not expect to be talking about. Number 3, Oklahoma just ekes out unwinned Baylor.
What an interesting game, man.
Right, 49-41.
I mean, I don't know, Baylor just showed up.
They did. They just weren't going to let it easy at all. Mm-hmm. We said it ended up being closer than we thought. It's classic Big 12 football, man.
That's so true.
It's
just
all
points,
offense.
Points.
Zach Smith should have been Baylor's QB all along. It was all air for the Bears, man. 463 yards passing. And Smith went 33 of 50 with 4 touchdowns, didn't throw a single interception.
Yeah, there's your storyline. I mean, if they were looking for any kind of answer right now, having a stud quarterback is probably it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ask for much more than almost 500 yards of offense with no picks.
Whew.
We know how good Baker Mayfield is, right? But the Sooner rushing attack has shown up. Abdul Adams and Trey Sermon combined for 312 yards.
Unbelievable.
On just 23 touches, man.
Yeah, that's just insane.
Yeah, no kidding. Baylor recovered an onside kick late in the 4th, and they tried to make a comeback, but a well-timed sack fumble by Oklahoma would seal it, and the Sooners remain at number 3 in the AP poll, and the Bears of Baylor remain winless at 0-4.
Yeah, you weren't kidding. That Oklahoma TCU game, if they're both in the top 5 by the time they get to that point,
Lordy, you gonna make
heartbreak
me sweat.
for somebody. What a game though. It was as strange of a spot as Baylor's in, and I know a lot of people. There's just tons of controversy there, but they showed up. The guys that are on the team, you gotta be hopeful for them. They're not part of the problem, so it was good to see them. You see some life.
Yeah, exactly.
After a brutal start for them.
Yeah. Well, Mitchell, we have spent an awfully long time talking about teams that aren't in the SEC. So let's quell that and start talking about some real football, huh?
Oh, yeah, because it just means more.
It just means so much more.
Yeah, sure. I'll hop into the East real quick. I just kind of want to, like any hangover, I just want to get it out of the way. The hangover game for Tennessee at home against UMass. Shout out to Chris Berman for being on the sideline.
I saw that.
Obviously rough year for him. Yeah. Losing his wife and everything, but it was just good to see the guy back around, a football field. It's just nice to see him there. I definitely did not expect it. I will say that much, just in general. But this was a very strange game. Obviously last week with the just unbelievable gut-wrenching loss to Florida. I had kind of said, Tennessee's probably going to be a little sleepy, a little hung up on that game. Still seeing those Dormady turnovers. He had a rough fumble. He's just got to limit the mistakes. He went 17 for 27, 187 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, and a lost fumble. I mean, I feel like those are the stat lines we're going to be seeing from him. This is clearly a running first team now with John Kelly coming in and 25 carries against UMass. I'm not really crazy about any top SEC running back having to do that against a team like UMass. But I mean, this is one of those things where like shout out to UMass. I mean, they played hard. They threw the ball a lot. It's just interesting to watch Tennessee play, man. I mean, even with all the injuries, there's still a lot of talent. We talk about how no matter who's on the field, if it's a Butch Jones team, they're never completely out, whether it's a game that should be a blowout or a game that should be, super close. They're always in it somehow. But they just got to execute. I mean, we've talked about how we really don't even know what to say. I kind of feel like Butch Jones is like this, he's like a good student, but every time they have a game, it's like he just woke up that morning and found out he has like a huge term paper due and he has 4 hours to get it done. And
that is the best analogy I've ever heard for Butch Jones coaching, I think.
And it's like sometimes he gets it in right at the wire and he gets an A, and it's like, oh, all right, Butch. Like, yeah, like you're playing your full potential. It was cool. Like we were sweating, but
at Hail Mary last year, that's what that was.
Yeah, right, exactly. That was that, sliding under the teacher's door right at 11:59 p.m. or whatever. Then we see other games where, like last week, the door is locked right at the last second. He just doesn't make it, doesn't get it. Again, but this team is battling injuries. I mean, you got Jawan Jennings out for the year. You got Chance Hall, offensive tackles hurt. You got linebackers hurt in Cortez McDowell and Darren Kirkland. All kinds of stuff. Another linebacker, Austin Smith's hurt. Safety Todd Kelly. I mean, it's just, and now Evan Berry's hurt. He's not going to play against Georgia. I know he's been a huge stud, filling his brother Eric's shoes. But it was just a crazy game. Again, the O-line played well somewhat. They didn't allow any sacks. They did allow 12 tackles for loss, which against, a team that you should beat handily is pretty brutal. Defense solid, 7 sacks, 12 tackles for loss themselves. They forced a fumble, but no turnovers in this game. Again, these games are an opportunity to do that. But I feel like, just to sum it up, you can pretty much call this game a wash. I mean, I guarantee you, everybody was pretty down going into this game. I want to talk about next week in Knoxville when Georgia comes to town, because this game is going to be crazy. I am just convinced that, it's going to be nuts. I don't think it's going to be anything like the Mississippi State game, mainly just because, Georgia's going to be on the road. I think Tennessee's defense still has a good bit of talent. I think it's going to be just who's going to run harder between Chubb and Kelly. And obviously, Georgia has Michelle. And Tennessee has some depth guys as well. It's just going to be a crazy game. I feel like if Georgia is the team that they are presenting themselves as, they should win by 2 scores. I'm calling 24-10 Georgia. I am terrified to make that kind of pick. But, I mean, honestly, anything could happen. But that is my pick for that game. It's going to be a crazy one in Knoxville next week. I'm calling it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Bulldogs are going to come away with this one. You always talk about Dormady's mistakes, and I think that's really, really going to hurt Tennessee next week. Mm-hmm. The Georgia defense is out for blood right now. And, I mean, you just said they've got talent. Of course they've got talent. They got John Kelly. They got good receivers. But
shout out to Brandon Edward Johnson for coming through after I didn't even really have him on my radar, and he had 123 yards on 7 catches. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you, but they got talent.
You're absolutely right. But the thing is, if Dormady cannot take care of the ball, he's young, he makes young mistakes. Ball control comes with age, but this defense right now is not playing around. For Georgia, and it's just going to be one of those things where he's just not going to be able to take care of the ball. Oh,
completely. Well, it's crazy because then it's 2 young quarterbacks going up against each other, but it doesn't feel that way, does it?
No, not at all. No.
And not to mention that Dormady is a junior. That's the craziest thing. And he's going up against a true freshman. So, he's playing like a freshman. Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be wild.
All right, man. Well, let's go over to the West. Let's talk about the Battle of the Tigers real quick.
All right.
Number 15, Auburn, heads into Columbia, Missouri, and takes down Missouri 51-14.
Took them down from their lofty pedestal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm just glad that Auburn's 50+ point sacrifice has been taken early this year. I'm glad it's not going to be Arkansas. That's good. Well, it could be.
That's funny.
But last week I said Auburn's offense was going to struggle, but I way overestimated Missouri's defense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there's really nothing much to say about this game other than Mizzou's defense just isn't there. They gave up 482 yards of offense, and their fans actually weren't there either. At kickoff, that stadium looked pretty empty as it was, but Mizzou going down early and staying down definitely didn't help things. In the second half, that place, it was pretty much a ghost town. It was eerily quiet on the broadcast, which is never fun to see. But
I remember you saying that you couldn't hear anything. It was just the plays. That was it. You could probably hear the play calls.
I could hear players talking on the field.
Oh gosh.
But back to the game. The defense. So the Mizzou defense, they gave Stidham tons of time to sit back and make smart throws. Only one sack was recorded all day for Missouri, and just how smart were Stidham's throws. Actually, they were real smart. He went 13 of 17 for 218 yards and 1 touchdown. He averaged 12 yards of reception.
Wow.
Which is good. Mizzou didn't do a great job of stopping the run either, 263 yards on the ground for Auburn. And they worked on a big problem from last week, which was depth. Only Petway got runs against Mercer. But this week, 7 different players carried the ball for Auburn.
Yeah.
And they got some depth in at QB, which is really good, after Sean White was let go. Malik Willis took 4 snaps. It's just 4, but it's just good to see him get in there and get some snaps.
No kidding.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we were talking about how Petway was probably going to be banged up after they just rode him against Mercer, and sure enough, but apparently he's going to be good to go next week. That was all I was going to say.
Yeah, I think they gave him a break this week.
Well deserved.
Yeah. So I said Mizzou's defense really crapped the bed, but good thing they have a high-powered offense, right?
Yeah, right. Totally kept up with that.
Wrong. The ground game went absolutely nowhere. Witter, Roundtree, and Crockett, they all combined for only 111 rushing yards, and even with Crockett shouldering 13 carries, that's nothing, man.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Lock, he went 23 of 39. He threw a pick. It's just not helping out with the defense at all. He did look average. I mean, he threw 5 yards of reception, which is pretty good, and he threw both of Mizzou's touchdowns. But, I mean, it's just not going to happen with those numbers. And we knew turnovers were a huge issue for Auburn last week, but this week they really tightened that up, and meanwhile, Mizzou turned the ball over 4 times.
Goodness gracious.
So, yeah, after this win over Mizzou, Auburn's going to move from number 15 to number 13 in the AP poll, which may have more to do with how the teams around them played, really, more than they played.
I agree.
Next week, Auburn heads home to play a battered Mississippi State. And I think this matchup is going to be more interesting than when the Bulldogs played Georgia. For me, it's going to be a battle between Nick Fitzgerald and the Auburn defense.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
Auburn's defense is playing well enough to stop Fitzgerald. It'll just come down to whether they can kind of contain him and force him to trust his arm.
Yeah, and I mean Mississippi State's defense. I know they got mowed over last week, but they're talented. They're good. So I agree. I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I could see Nick Fitzgerald. I'm sure he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I'm sure he's ready to play. I could see him coming out hot in this one.
Yeah. And you mentioned Todd Grantham's defense. It's going to be interesting with all the struggles that, obviously Missouri's defense was nothing for Auburn, but with all their offensive struggles they've shown so far, this is going to be a good defense for them to play.
Definitely. And I definitely think that Auburn desperately needed that game against Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
I think they needed to come in and, if it had been any kind of a struggle, I think it'd be really tough for them to go back home and play Mississippi State. But after just the momentum of just blowing an SEC team out, I think I think it's kind of even the playing field, especially since Mississippi State is coming off a rough road game. So, and this is Mississippi State's second road game in a row. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I'm excited about this one. I think it's gonna be close. What do you think's gonna be the final?
I'm taking Auburn over Mississippi State 38-30. I think we're going to see some points in this game. I don't feel super confident about taking Auburn just because of the offensive woes we've seen in the past. I also don't feel good about taking Mississippi State because of what happened this week. But
Right.
I'm going to stick with the Tigers. I'm going 38-30, and we'll see if it ends up being a shootout like I think it will be.
Sounds good. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see them put up some points. By the way, Missouri, I believe, they haven't allowed less than 30. So I think that's a very fair assumption that it's going to be a shootout in Auburn.
And for Missouri next week, they have some things to clean up, obviously, but they have a bye week this week. But after the bye, it's not going to get any easier. In week 6, the Tigers go to Lexington. And,
Whoa.
I mean, if things keep going the way they are, Kentucky might just roll over Mizzou with how they're playing right now.
I could see it. I'm sure they're mad.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, let's swing it back over to the East then, my man.
Sounds good. Speaking of Kentucky, an absolute. I mean, this was just another Florida game. I don't even really have to. I'm not even gonna start the Titanic music. It was just Florida being Florida. McElwain just walking into a win.
McElwain going to McElwain.
I say that, but this was a game that. I mean, you can talk about how lucky, whatever Florida is all you want, but Kentucky gave them this game. I hate to say that, but they just did. They were playing so well. I mean, Steven Johnson, we've been talking about how he's got some talent. He came in, went 17 for 25, 196 yards, 3 touchdowns. On the other side, we had the sort of dueling quarterback thing going on in Florida with Felipe Franks going 7 for 12 for 85 yards and a touchdown. Luke Del Rio coming in and sort of closing the game out. It's like the bullpen guy, 9 of 14 for 74 yards and a touchdown and a pick. So I guess maybe we've reached a point where Florida just has this, like, if they Frankenstein, Franks and Luke Del Rio together, they sort of end up with one decent quarterback.
Yeah, they've got 2 half quarterbacks.
Yeah, right. But anyway, yeah, it was just weird. I don't know. Florida's in such a weird spot with the suspensions, which I'm going to get into in a second. But I don't know. I mean, this was a crazy game. Florida still finds a way to make big plays. Kadarius Toney had a nice Wildcat touchdown. The run game was kind of an interesting spot. We've seen Malik Davis step up in Jordan Scarlett's absence. He had 21 carries for 93 yards. And then, like I said, Toney on the nice Wildcat touchdown. Toney also threw a pass. I believe this was Florida's longest pass of the night by a mile. It was a 50-yard bomb to Tyree Cleveland. But anyway,
best quarterback's a running back.
Yeah, right. But it's interesting to see McElwain kind of, playing with some stuff, given the fact that they don't really have a set quarterback. They also had, in Scarlett's continued absence, they had 6 different guys run the ball, which was interesting. But and then on Kentucky side, Benny Snell went 14 for 59. Not bad, they definitely threw it a bit more than usual. But yeah, I don't know. Kentucky, they look balanced overall. I mean, they held the lead. It was a solid. I believe. Let's take a look here.
Well, I mean, really, offensively speaking, Kentucky was in control of this game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in the fourth quarter, they led 27-14 with 7 minutes to go. I mean, that's solid. I mean, you should expect if you've got as much talent as they have and your defense is playing well that you should win that game. But thus brings us to SEC football. Yeah, man, it all comes down to the fact, I mean, we were both watching at the same time when Freddie Swain was just completely wide open in the red zone with less than a minute to go in the game, waving his arms like, I'm open, I'm going to be open, throw it to me in the end zone, and we're going to get out of here with the win.
I don't know if that Kentucky defensive back was just playing formation or if he was just instead of playing man, or if he was just trying to sub and got confused or something, but he was just I don't know what was going on with that.
I know,
defense.
and that was the second time in the game that same thing had happened, where a guy
Yeah.
was just completely uncovered. You know,
you're absolutely right.
And you know, it was just like a perfect storm for Kentucky. I mean, Stoops was trying to call a timeout. He saw the guy. He saw that Freddie Swain was wide open. You know, he doesn't get the timeout. They score. Kentucky starts driving, gets off to a great drive, and then Benny Snell, you know, gets a big run. It seems like it's gonna, you know, they're gonna have like a chip shot field goal, maybe 35 yards, and sure enough, you know, holding comes back, and then they end up with a 56-yarder, and
it's a backbreaker, man, backbreaker.
It's rough. I mean, it's wild, but it was just truly. They just, I don't know. It was a crazy loss for Kentucky. I mean, they would look so fired up. Fans, it was a packed place. I mean, 31 straight losses to Florida, though. And like I was kind of saying, though, you know, they mostly played on par with each other. I mean, Florida did have 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. Kentucky had 1 sack, 4 tackles for loss, and a nice pick. No fumbles in this game. Pretty interesting, but also Kentucky, I will say they were, you know, I know obviously the last one was pretty difficult to make, being 56 yards, but you know, they were 2 for 4 kicking. I don't know. It was
speaking
wild.
of that field goal, I felt so bad for that kid.
God,
56
it was close
56
too.
yards. 56 yards is an absolute monster of a kick to ask this guy to win the game. And I mean, they had to do it. I understand, but like, it's just watching that thing just sail and hit the end zone. It was just like so heartbreaking, man.
Yeah, seriously.
It really was.
He had a decent look at it. I guess it just,
he was accurate.
How do you expect?
He had the accuracy, man. He just didn't have the
kick
leg
it that far. Yeah. I know he'd had a game winner before, but it was wild. I did want to talk about Kentucky, though, is still, I want to say they're still a very good team. There's still talent. They've definitely shocked us, especially based on our previews. They just some cool numbers in this game. They had 7 receivers with at least 20 yards. It's pretty wild. You know, for Florida, I don't really know what to make of them going forward. We kind of figured out this week what was up with the suspensions. So we're dealing with all those players: Antonio Callaway, leading receiver, leading running back Jordan Scarlett, a host of other guys are all being charged with third-degree felonies for using stolen credit cards to add money to their bookstore accounts. So I don't believe we'll be seeing any of those guys anytime soon.
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks to lose talent. You know, Callaway gave us that great 4th down touchdown last year in the Florida-Tennessee game. I mean, they definitely made their mark, but it sucks to see guys go out that way. But, I mean, what do you expect?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but my main point being, this is the Florida squad we're going to be seeing.
Oh, yeah. Like
for the
they're not coming
foreseeable
back.
future.
Yeah, this is it.
You know, they were talking to McElwain about it, and they were like, does the felony, do the charges, you know, change things? And he was like, yeah. But,
yeah, they're going to prison.
but we will see what eventually happens. But, you know, Florida, obviously, like I've said, has had some playmakers step up with Tony, with Tyree Cleveland, with the unguardable, if you can't see him, Freddie Swain. But Kentucky goes on to play Eastern Michigan next week at home. You know, it's probably going to be similar to Tennessee's game against UMass. I'm sure it'll be a bit of a slow start. Florida plays Vandy in the Swamp. God help Vandy. Hopefully they're... I don't really know what's going to happen here. I don't feel like there's any reason why Florida shouldn't win this game, just knowing their defense. But we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, if Vandy's going to surprise somebody, it might be in this game.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts. On actually, speaking of Vanderbilt, I was going to talk next about Vanderbilt, Alabama.
That says it all right there.
I mean, do we even need to go here?
I mean, I think it comes down to, I was literally texting you saying, well, you know, it's been a pretty rough start, but it's still just a 1-possession game. And at that moment, I looked up, And sure enough, it became a 2-score game.
Then quickly a 3 and a 4 and a 6.
Yep. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I don't know, man. There's really nothing to say about this game besides it's just a talent disparity. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't think it comes down to coaching. I don't think it comes down to play calling. I think it just comes down to talent. And I mean, I'm going to lay out. And size. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to lay out some box score stats for you just for anyone who didn't watch. But we're going to have a little bit of fun with it. Let's play a game, Mitch.
Oh, sure.
Let's play a game called Who Had More. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. Who had more average yards per attempt? Starting Vandy running back Ralph Webb per carry, or backup Alabama punt returner Henry Ruggs III per return?
Wow. Based on just how the game went, I'm going to go with Ruggs.
You are correct, sir. Ruggs had 16 yards a return, and Webb averaged 3.3 yards per carry.
And we're not talking about a guy who's new,
No, we're talking about veteran, fifth year
one
running
of the
back,
stars of
SEC.
the program.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, who had more, Mitch? Did Alabama average more yards per carry than Vanderbilt punted?
Wow. Again, I'm going to assume yes, but that's shocking.
No. Alabama averaged 7.5 yards per carry. Vanderbilt punted 9 times.
Dang.
And this one's just for the Doors fans. Did Vanderbilt have more first downs or more penalties?
I would hope first downs.
You would be wrong. Oh. They had 5 penalties and they got only 3 first downs, Mitch.
It was just brutal. I mean, it was like blood sport. Just
and I've got
like
one.
Turn it off. Stop.
Anyway. They're already dead. I've got one more for you. Who had more rushing yards? Backup tight end for Alabama, Ronnie Clark, or the entire Vanderbilt offense?
Who was it? I'm not even going to guess.
It was backup tight end Ronnie Clark for Alabama with 48 rushing yards on the day. The Vanderbilt offense clocked in 40.
I mean, this was just the epitome of, you could draw comparisons between Nick Saban and Bill Belichick where he just finds every strength you have and neutralizes it and every weakness you have and absolutely blows it up.
The man is a mad scientist.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw mistakes early, and it just, by Vanderbilt, which we said from the get-go, I mean, it's obvious anytime you play Alabama, your mistakes are going to kill you on the spot, and sure enough, we saw that happen.
Yep, and just kind of go backtracking to what you said about Florida Vandy next week. As much as I'd like to say Vandy's going to pull that win off, they're going to be hungover from Bama. They're not going to be ready for the swamp. I think it'll be close. And despite offensive Florida's struggles, or Florida's offensive struggles, pardon me, the Doors are going to drop this one to the Gators on the road. I'm taking it 17-7. I think we're going to see a lot more defense than offense. I just don't think the Doors are going to pull it out.
That sounds like a good line. I would agree. I think we could talk about the fact that Florida had a later game and was definitely a closer, harder fought game, but I think just the sheer toll that game and all that time with Vandy's defense being on the field, score after Alabama score, I agree. I think it's going to be easier than it usually would be for Franks or Del Rio. I believe Del Rio is actually getting the start, but yeah, I think they will have an easier time with this Vandy defense, who is talented but will be exhausted.
Yeah,
Luke Del Rio. I'm thinking of his dad, the coach.
Yeah, I just think the wind's kind of out of their sails right now. They took a real big gut punch.
Huge.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be too much. And on the flip side, I want to go ahead and take this opportunity to talk a little bit about Ole Miss. They had a bye week this week. They play Alabama next week, so let me kind of lump that in together. This game is always a fun one, Ole Miss and Alabama, no matter which way it swings. It'll be interesting to see if the Rebels can play them as hard this year, with all their injuries and all that kind of stuff. And, do I think Ole Miss is going to win this game? No. No. Absolutely not. Do I think they'll score some points? Yes. At least, probably. Wide receiver A.J. Brown still looks unlikely to play, which is a big hit, at least until week 6. But the Rebels have some offensive weapons, man. They got Shea Patterson. They got DeMarcus Lodge. It's just that Alabama has way more. I'm taking the Crimson Tide. They're going to roll again, this time in Tuscaloosa. I'm calling it 41-27 over Ole Miss.
All right. I feel like if anything, it could be like that Keanu Reeves movie, The Replacements, where at the end they're talking about, they're just like, we got like, there's no tomorrow. Like, we're just going to do it. Like, we're going to do whatever. And I feel like that's Ole Miss at this point.
That's got to be how Ole Miss plays every game this year, man.
Right, exactly. But I feel like this is the epitome of just like, whatever. Like, let's just do it.
This is the epitome of, you were saying last week, just first down bomb on every single drive.
Yeah.
Just play action, 50-yard pass. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, just gas those corners until, there's nothing left. But, yeah, maybe just not even – maybe have your wide receivers just give up halfway through the route and just have those guys keep running and just out-throw them. Anyway, it'll be an interesting game. Can't wait to see what Ole Miss brings to the table, but I agree with you. I think you're right.
Yeah. All right, well, let's head back to the East then, my man.
Absolutely. Another it was Hangover City in the East this week. South Carolina beating Louisiana Tech by a last-second field goal to make it 17-6.
Yeah, it was. It's so funny that you say it was like Hangover City. You're totally right. It's like all the East coaches got together, did some fireball shots on Friday night, and then they all got together and were like, let's just have fun today.
Right. Like who cares? Yeah, obviously South Carolina coming off a rough loss last week to Kentucky. It was weird hearing, how they always play Sandstorm after they win games. It was really weird hearing Sandstorm come on and the stadium rocking after this game ended. It just felt super sad to me.
Feels hollow.
Yeah, and there was this beautiful shot of everyone just going crazy, game winner, like it's their field goal kicker's I think 0 for 4 career, and this was Parker White's first career field goal. Was that kick, and the stadium's going crazy, the whole sideline, bench empties and everything, and then you see this beautiful shot of Muschamp just kind of look up at the scoreboard, kind of give like a half smile, and then just sort of look at the ground. So it's like, yep, that's pretty much what it feels like.
I can only imagine it's one of those amazing shots you see, like you said, the crowd going crazy, the players all celebrating, and then like the scoreboard, like the ESPN graphic comes up, and it's just like 17-16.
Yeah, right. Louisiana Tech, and then Muschamp just like borderline emotionless. But anyway, I'll dive into some stats. Jake Bentley, 22 for 34, 295 yards, touchdown, a pick. Tyson Williams stepping up, outplayed starter Rico Dowdle, who only had 9 carries for 32 yards, averaged 3.6 a carry. Tyson Williams went 13 for 95, averaging 7.3. That's kind of the stat line you should put up against, I know we've talked about how, I think we talked about how Louisiana Tech isn't necessarily awful. But still, those are the numbers you should expect to put up against a team like this. 10 receivers caught balls in this game. It's pretty wild. Definitely trying some stuff out.
That might have been the most of the day, I think. I think that's the most varied I've seen of the day, right?
Yeah, and, I think it's just them trying stuff after Debo went out, which, by the way, it's looking like 5 to 6 weeks with a leg fracture for Debo. So I believe we'll see him at some point this year. Not sure what kind of condition he'll be in when he comes back, but that's good news.
That's very good news.
Yeah. Bryson Allen Williams, linebacker, still out for the year. But other than that, not looking too bad for the Gamecocks. The O-line allowed 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. Brian Edwards stepped up big, though, as the leading receiver, 6 receptions for 122 yards. So, still got some speed, still got some talent. Obviously, he made a huge play with 15 seconds to go that basically is the reason they won this game. Defense came through with 1 sack, 5 tackles for loss, and a pick that was, I believe, we can talk about the Edwards catch, but that was the turning point. It was a rough game, like I had said. Parker White was, 0 for 2 field goals at this point. It was 13-0 late in the third quarter, and Jamarcus King had a nice pick in the red zone. Everything just sort of turned around after that point. It was still 13-0 until 11 minutes left in the fourth when DeAndre Smith caught a nice touchdown, and then the Gamecocks didn't take the lead until about 5 minutes left. And it was just wild. I mean, they were very much out of it. I mean, it was still a 2-score game, but they were held scoreless for so long, and then they finally took the lead. Louisiana Tech kicked another field goal, and then then South Carolina ends up hanging on. So I don't know. I don't really see this team getting past Texas A&M next week in College Station. I'm going to say A&M's going to pull it out 28-24, especially coming off a crazy win that I'm sure you're stoked to get into last week.
Yeah, what an excellent segue, Mitch. Thank you.
I kind of fell into it, and I was like, I don't really want it to be this way, but there it is.
Well, we've been saying the word hangover so many times this episode, it's only appropriate because that was accurately could describe my state of being in the hours that followed this game. I'm going to try to be less angry this time. I think I can do it.
If you need to tap out, let me know, because I was right there with you.
I will. Again, it's just again with this whole losing to A&M thing. Mm-hmm. Man. This makes it 6 in a row. 5 under Brett Bielema. Both of these teams are still bad. This much is known. Most likely A&M was going to ditch Kevin Sumlin after this year, regardless of him beating Arkansas. Unfortunately, Brett Bielema cost us a pretty penny. His buyout's about $15.4 million right now. So he'll definitely be here another year. I hope I'm wrong about that, but Mitch, I want to play another game with you. I'm just in a game mood right now. Mm-hmm. Let's call this one Excuses Arkansas Fans Still Give to Justify Brett Bielema and Why They're All Garbage.
All right.
We have high academics, we have high GPA, etc. Cool. Well, people don't spend thousands of dollars in tickets to watch guys solve equations. They don't buy into the program to watch guys nail a 2.9 in kinesiology. They pay to watch their team win, which they don't do. Players don't come here for a stellar education. They come to play and to win in the SEC. They want to be a part of a winning program, which Arkansas is not right now. Let's see. Bielema inherited a dumpster fire. It'll take him more than 5 years to have success. Okay, sure. All right, but what about USC? They fired their coach for being hammered on the sidelines. Literally coaching a conference game drunk. And they went from like a 5-6 win team to a Rose Bowl win last year. And a top 5 season this year. In like what, 1 or 2 years? How long has it been since Sarkisian got fired? Like a year, 2?
It's definitely... so he went to Alabama, and now he's with the Falcons. Yeah, I don't know, but it was definitely a pretty quick turnaround considering that it was completely... The program was basically lost in the dark.
Yeah, and they didn't even have to find some miracle hire. They just promoted Clay Helton from the inside.
Yeah, it wasn't some big name. It wasn't, like a Kiffin thing or something. It was just, hey, let's just keep doing our thing and get the baggage out of the way. And
God forbid, Mitch, let's talk about Penn State.
Oh, well, and them taking, Vanderbilt's old coach and just crushing it.
I mean even after all the god-awful things that happened with Jerry Sandusky and Joe Paterno, and we don't really need to rehash any of that, but it was just awful. And they were hanging by a thread for just like 3 or 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now look at them. Yeah. I'm just saying, teams have come back from way more intense dumpster fires in way less time. Yeah. Just give me a break with it. I don't buy it. Mm-hmm. Well, who else are we going to get? We can't get anybody better. I hear that all the time. Well, golly gee, I guess we just better hang on. I guess we better just hang on to him for 5 or 10 years. Hell, let's just call it 15 years. Because with that logic, no one would ever be fired. Oh, well, I've got this chef that undercooks everything. But if I fire him, who's to say the next guy won't also undercook the food? It's frankly not even an excuse. It's literally the point of firing a bad coach. You take a chance on a new guy who might have a way better plan of how to take your team to the next level. But
Yeah.
I've made my case on the coach of this team, Mitch. We don't need to get into it again.
Oh, absolutely.
And if any of y'all out there are still okay with this, then just put the blinders up and enjoy that Kool-Aid, buddy. You're gonna need it.
It's like the stages of grief. It's okay to be in the denial phase. But I mean, if you're talking about the thing that really gets me is who else are they going to get? It's a head coaching job at an SEC school, Division I. Pretty sure you can work through that. Plus, like, look at Mississippi State. They got Dan Mullen. He's a fantastic coach.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, there's an assistant out there that wants this job.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Mason's a great coach, and we could talk about Vanderbilt's history of struggles all day long. Arkansas has had some incredible stretches.
And this is just a point I want to bring up real quick. Did you see the sweatshirt Bielema was wearing?
Yeah, I did. He looked like a hog.
It was 90 degrees outside, Mitch.
Maybe he doesn't sweat. Maybe he's an alien from Men in Black.
Oh, he sweats, boy.
I said that just because I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, I know they were inside. I know they were in Jerry'sville, but it had to be over 70 degrees in there, man.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
He was wearing like a standard issue, like bottom of the line Walmart looking sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Like, that's the peril of a man who has given up. Anyways, let's talk stats real quick. Austin Allen, a senior QB. He performed almost entirely identical to a freshman QB in Kellen Mond. Allen went 12 of 25. Mond went 14 of 27. No. Allen threw for 229. Mond threw for 216. Allen threw 2 touchdowns and an interception. Mond threw exactly the same. Why is a senior quarterback performing the same as a freshman?
And a senior quarterback who's been incredibly good in the past.
He has had such a decline, man.
Who had made, at one point, was making a case for himself as the best passer, pound for pound, in the SEC. I have a hard time. I mean, first of all, he got rocked early on in the game.
Yeah, the O-line and pass protection continues to be a problem.
Yeah.
Allen was sacked 6 times.
Unbelievable.
And the Aggies had 8 tackles for loss.
I mean, constantly under duress, constantly under pressure. The guy's a good player. I just think the effect of the O-line and the coaching staff is just too much to put on that guy's shoulders. I mean, come on, you could tell he was constantly trying to make plays, and it's just forcing it.
And he's letting his frustration show.
Throwing
Throwing his helmet, yelling at guys on the field, yelling at coaches, like
while blood's coming out of his nose.
Well, he's literally bleeding out of his
glazed
face.
eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. Christian Kirk on Texas A&M's side balled out on Arkansas yet again.
That dude is just a monster. I mean, he seemed uncoverable.
5 catches for 110 yards, and he ran a kickoff back.
And the kickoff was brutal.
Which, by the way, why did we kick it right to the guy who's burned us not only in the past, but earlier in the game?
Yeah, just kick a touchback, man. I mean, if you can leg it, just kick it as hard as you can. Honestly,
well,
even if it went out of bounds, it would have been probably better.
That might have something to do with the fact that we don't have a special teams coach.
Oh, really?
Really? You're only allowed, 11 assistant coaches, I think, and we have an extra defensive coach, maybe, instead of a special teams coach, or we have some sort of special assistant, but...
Doesn't seem like that's paying off.
No, not at all. Armani Watts on the Aggie defense had another great day.
Mm-hmm.
He had the interception to win the game in OT.
Which was... Are you going to get more into that, or...
Well,
I'm just gonna let it go at that.
I mean, the truth is that Armani Watts had the pick, but it was a bad throw.
It was just, I mean, they had another down. They were in 4-down territory. He should not have. I mean, he should have just
triple coverage.
He had some room to run. He could have done anything. Throw an incompletion. I mean, at least you're still playing. I think that this game was very winnable. At least they could have stretched it to another OT. That pass he had no business throwing that ball. I mean, I feel bad for him having to watch that film because that's probably brutal.
And you can make a case for the fact he didn't have receivers, which is true. He especially doesn't have receivers now because Jared Cornelius is hurt.
I was trying to be optimistic about that, but that was Achilles all day.
Yeah, it's actually he's been officially ruled out for the season. Just trying to get he's looking like he can get a medical red shirt, so hopefully we can have him back next year. But He just pulled it's just an Achilles. He's just trying to get his route started. It was a
Just
non-contact injury.
Yeah.
Just a freak thing, man.
Right there coming off his back foot, you could just see it. You could literally almost see it snap through the shoe. It was just brutal. It's good to hear, the medical red shirt, mainly just for the dude's draft stock. I mean, we hope he's able to salvage a career out of this because he's a great player.
He is he's one of Arkansas's only really great players.
You could see that very clearly after he left the game. Brutal shot of him in the tent, just feeling the effects of what had happened. But yeah, I mean, you did say though you had thought that I know we're talking about two teams that we kind of expected to put up points against each other, but Arkansas still put up some serious points even without him, which was somewhat encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, not all is really doom and gloom. Truly, I have a lot of confidence moving forward in this team. Maybe not this year, but in the years to come. Man,
in the players at least.
I gotta talk. Yeah, I gotta talk about my man, my boy, my giant man swag Tebow, Mr. 6'7", 270 pounds, beast Cole Kelly. Can we talk about this kid?
Oh, absolutely. Every single time he came out on the field, I was like, this is gonna be a first down.
Oh, no man, doubt. He is the future. He's that new. Every time he was in the game, man, something good happened. Couple first downs. He threw a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
Give the kid some more snaps. He looks fresh. He looks energetic. He wants it.
I mean, why not? I think if they lose maybe 2 more games, why not just let him take the reins for a game or two? I mean, why not?
Yeah, I mean, he's got other weapons, man. Freshman Chase Hayden.
Yeah, and I mean, he can definitely see everybody.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, well, Hayden went 13 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. Give him the ball more.
Yeah. No doubt. He looked really good, especially early on.
Yeah, he looked really, really good. He's very
they were
quick.
just shredding him. Yeah. Really elusive.
But moving right along, Sumlin, he routes Big Boy Bird again in overtime. This time maybe in front of half of Jerry World's capacity because neither of these fan bases are feeling super good right now. Next week, we talked a little bit about it. Texas A&M plays South Carolina at Kyle Field, and you gave a really great insight into this game. Honestly, I have no idea what to think. Texas A&M is pretty down, even with this win, and South Carolina's definitely seen better days. They no more Debo Samuel for the time being. I'm going to give it to the Aggies because of home field advantage with an eerily similar score to you. I'm going 27-21.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll certainly see what happens. I definitely agree. As far as home field goes, and just as far as playmakers go, I mean, I think if Debo's in this game, it's different. But the fact that he's not, it's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, I agree with you. It's going to be I think.
Yeah, and the Hogs are going to go back to Fayetteville for just the second time this year, believe it or not, to play New Mexico State. And I'm not kidding when I say Arkansas could lose this game. They shouldn't. Yeah. They shouldn't. But honestly, would anybody be surprised if they did?
It would be, I would be maybe surprised, but I wouldn't be like jaw on the floor.
Maybe I'm being down in the dumps. But we
get it.
We know New Mexico State can score points.
I think it's going to be just like the South Carolina and Tennessee games where it's a slow start. Arkansas kind of picks themselves up. I see them winning it, but I definitely don't think it's going to be a steamroll blowout, which in those games is really what winning it means. You know what I mean? I mean,
absolutely.
You should be up by 3 scores. You should really ball out, have backups in. But yeah, I definitely think it'll be a sluggish one for sure.
Well, here's to hoping the defense can play smart and not sleep. I'm taking the Hogs. I'm taking the Hogs 38-20.
Alrighty. Well, I hope that felt cathartic.
It's just I don't know how much longer I can keep talking about this team.
Hopefully we just see. I just feel like Arkansas has kind of been a victim of getting caught in the middle in the West, and I think they've had pieces there, but they just haven't all come together at the right time, which, is the case for really any team that hasn't won a national championship in the past decade or two. But
64, my man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm dealing with, anyway. it's just one of those things where the pieces just haven't come together. And I mean, when it gets to be that long, you're like, well, when is it ever going to happen? But I certainly think it starts with a coach that just. I mean, I don't even have to say it.
Yeah.
But
And who am I kidding? I love talking about the Hogs.
that's all I was really trying to get out of you.
Let's scoot it on back to the East. Let's keep it rolling.
The last Eastern game I'm going to be covering. Well, it's an East-West game. Georgia 31 over Mississippi State 3. This I'm going to just go ahead and start out right out of the gate and just say this is the most complete game I've seen the Bulldogs play in an extremely long time. I mean, they put the pedal to the metal, foot on the gas, did not let up. First offensive drive for the Dogs, first play, flea flicker. Are you kidding me? Did we ever see that under Mark Richt? Maybe we saw glimpses. Maybe we saw them try to do something. But, I mean, this was just the kind of football that I love to watch, that Georgia fans wanted to see. The stadium was rocking. Just going to throw out some quick stats. Jake Fromm, 9 for 12, super efficient, 201 yards and 2 touchdowns, versus Nick Fitzgerald going 14 for 29 for 83 passing yards, 2.9 average yards per reception, with 2 picks and no touchdowns. I mean, that is lights out secondary play if I've ever seen it. Rushing attack went crazy as usual. Chubb had a beautiful run around the left edge. Thought he was going to go down. Ends up making a guy miss, getting unbelievable blocks from the fullback, Christian Payne, who's a heck of a blocker, a huge part of this run game that should not be unmentioned. You had DeAndre Swift come in and shoulder some load, go 10 for 69 yards. He did lose a fumble, but, he's a young guy. He's showing some talent. They held Mississippi State pretty much. Fitzgerald did run a good bit. He had 5 carries for 52 yards. I know that's something that the Dogs limited at Notre Dame, but something to watch out for in the future. I want to point out that Georgia hasn't really faced a true pocket passer as of, just yet, which I think is going to be interesting. Obviously, I don't think of Dormady as one, but he's definitely still that style. He's the more pro-style guy, so that'll be interesting. Just want to point that out. But they, obviously Mississippi State was playing from behind most of the time. They did have 177 rushing yards on the day, which is pretty solid. Eris Williams going 10 for 47, 4.7 yards. Georgia receiving. So no receiver had more than 2 catches in this game. How weird is that? 9 total catches across the board.
Well, I mean, y'all only threw the ball 12 times.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. And 9 catches total across the team for 201 yards. Terry Godwin with the unreal.
I guess you weren't kidding when you said efficient.
Yeah, like as efficient as possible. Obviously not 100%, but it was just wild. Yeah. On Mississippi State's side, we had Dedrick Thomas, 2 receptions for 41 yards. They had 100 yards receiving on the day. Anyway, just to get into this game, obviously Georgia was in the driver's seat from the get-go, as I had said. Defense was great at limiting drives. Both teams had 15 first downs. I mean, Mississippi State moved the ball. Georgia was really solid at just finishing. They just finished on every side of the ball. They gave up 0 sacks, only 3 tackles for loss. Excuse me. That's correct. And then they did have the fumble by DeAndre Swift. Excuse me, I lost my place. Yeah, and then Georgia didn't have any sacks, only 3 tackles for loss. I mean, it wasn't exactly a dominant, we're going to beat you up. Obviously, they had a good bit of pressure on Fitzgerald from the get-go. And then 2 nice picks, which, I mean, that pretty much buried Mississippi State. But, it was just clean football from Georgia and just dominant, good on third down, really solid. Again, Chubb looks great. I think there's been some talk now that Eason is maybe going to practice this week. He might get cleared pretty soon. I just, and Kirby Smart has come out and said he sees it just like any other position where it's like an O lineman. If one guy's playing better in practice, he's going to get the start. And I'm like, okay, that better be some smoke you're blowing, man, because that's ridiculous.
Don't do it, Kirby.
Don't do that.
Don't do it, Kirby.
There's a clear momentum shift with Fromm back there. He's just playing well. Everybody seems to be, he seems to be leading the team. Everyone seems to want to play for him. And, no slight to Jacob Eason, who is a talented, good quarterback who had some awesome games last year. But, Kirby, come on.
Don't do it, Kirby.
Don't not do something just because it seems obvious.
Kirby, you're coaching so well. Don't do it.
Nope. Yeah.
Don't absolutely. Do it. You said at the beginning. You said at the beginning of this segment, you said a flea flicker on the first play of the game.
And
would we see that with Mark Richt? Your answer is no. The difference right now with Georgia football is Kirby Smart.
Yeah, and other plays like 3rd and 1 where they've already got a huge lead, fake pitch, and then the bomb to Isaac Nada, tight end. It's just like, come on, like this stuff is great. Like I like at Georgia, like we're seeing that kind of stuff. I want to point out that Todd Grantham was up in the booth during this game. He was up high, which I think should be the case. I think he should be up there every week. Don't let him on the field. Just let him bird's eye view it. I think that made a difference.
Yeah.
I don't want him down there because, I haven't seen anything from him. Talk about, play calls. He was pulling out some stuff I haven't seen guys doing forever. So anyway, if Georgia is who they appear to be, like I said, they should win in Knoxville next week by 2 scores. There is no reason that this team shouldn't come into Knoxville and play well. And there's no reason the defense shouldn't be getting after the ball a lot. I think if they drop this game, even in the SEC and in the NCAA where anything can happen, if they drop this game, then you're going to be hearing a lot from me next week. But
yeah, it might be your turn to go on a rant.
Yeah, no kidding. But anyway, just a absolutely very well called game by Georgia. A tough loss for Mississippi State. I had absolutely no reason to think. I called Mississippi State winning this game. I had no reason to think it wasn't going to be a close one between the hedges. Like I said, Mississippi State ran the ball well. Honestly, Fitzgerald just got rocked from the get-go. Holding him to 83 passing yards says it all. The secondary is just playing so well. Having Malcolm Parrish back on 3rd downs was like I had said, a big deal for the Georgia defense. Looking to see him have an increased role going forward. Anyway, this was just a dominant showing by Georgia. I wasn't ready to believe until I saw that goal line stop when the backup quarterback came in from Mississippi State, and they stopped him in the last couple seconds on the goal line. The old Georgia, the Mark Richt Georgia, who absolutely no disrespect to Mark Richt, an incredible coach, an incredibly consistent coach who many believed it was a poor decision to fire, just as many believed that it was a good one. But the old Georgia would have, let them score, would have maybe taken the foot off the gas, but to see this team stand up and put those spike shoulder pads on and be like, it's not happening was something that I haven't seen forever. I hope that this is Georgia asserting dominance and no slight to Mississippi State. I hope we see Mississippi State play extremely well next week at Auburn. I hope that's a close game. I certainly hope this was not some kind of unmasking of Mississippi State, which I don't believe it was. I think Dan Mullen has a great team in Starkville. I'm thinking Mississippi State's going to win this one 20-17 over Auburn, and that's what I'm calling. What do you think?
Oh, we disagree.
I know you talked about it. Yeah,
we disagree on the Mississippi State Auburn game.
Yeah.
Interesting take. I've got to take Auburn. It's at Jordan Hare. They're coming off a humongous win in Columbia, Missouri, and I feel good about the Tigers, man. You can feel good about those Bulldogs. Let's disagree for once.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I am calling. I do think we could maybe agree it's going to be a nail biter.
I would like it to be.
Yeah, I think it has potential to be, like you said, especially at Jordan Hare where insane things happen. Just real quick, want to go through. You have another West game. You have LSU Syracuse, right?
I do, absolutely.
That's right, absolutely. I was just really fast, just going to go through the ranked teams right now. Obviously, Alabama's still in the AP, and the coaches are at dead set at number 1.
Naturally.
Georgia now ranked 7th in the AP, 8th in the coaches. Top 10. They've broken into the top 10.
They're climbing.
That is, as a fan, that makes me incredibly nervous, but good to see multiple SEC teams in the top 10 anytime. Auburn 13th in the AP and 15th in the coaches, which, like you said, I believe is has something to do with how the other teams around them played this week.
I think it does.
Florida coming in at 21 in the AP and 20 in the coaches, which is pretty intriguing. Obviously, I think it's just going to be another year where we see Florida hang on to some kind of top 25 spot. They're an interesting team. If they turn it around second half of the season and really start playing well on offense, we can see them in the SEC championship again. Mississippi State hanging on in the top 25, 24 in both polls. And then LSU still in the top 25, 25th in the AP and 22 in the coaches. So we got some representation in the top 25 right now. It'll be interesting to see who hangs on. Anyway, just wanted to get through that real quick. Back over to this LSU game, a much-needed win for LSU.
Absolutely. You are a segue machine this episode, my man. Number 25 LSU just skirts past the Syracuse Orange in Death Valley, 35-26. They, like you said, they really needed to take care of business this week after getting beat down by Mississippi State last week. And they were able to come away with a win, but it wasn't very pretty.
No.
They played more disciplined than they have been. The Tigers only committed 3 penalties for 25 yards, but one of those was a roughing the passer call that would set up a Syracuse touchdown. So they cut down on the number of penalties, the severity of them, maybe not.
Yeah.
The Tiger offense averaged 6.8 yards per play and converted 7 of their 13 third downs. Excuse me, that's a weird way of saying that. But they also punted 5 times and gave up a safety. So they weren't as efficient as they looked on paper. And speaking of punts, I need to give a quick shout out to the Syracuse punter, Sterling Hoffrichter. Let's say. Dude has a leg. He punted the ball 7 times for 327 yards, and I'm not sure how your math is, but by my hand, that's almost 47 yards a punt.
Woo!
Which is pretty unreal.
No kidding.
Mitch, what's wrong with Darius, guys?
I actually think that he's banged up.
Is he a little bit?
Yeah, he is. I think he's like there's physically something wrong with him because he doesn't look like the guys that we talked about, that we expected to see.
He doesn't. He's running timid.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Absolutely.
weird. 8 carries for just 14 yards against Syracuse.
Yeah, that's not what you want.
No, I mean, Darrell Williams ran for 92 yards. He was serviceable enough, but, I mean, Geis is your playmaker.
Oh, yeah. He should be the heart and soul of this team. He's the John Kelly. He's the Nick Chubb. He's the, go on and on.
And this is a Power 5. I mean, it is Syracuse, but I think Syracuse is a lot better than people give them credit for. This is a Power 5 non-conference game. Your playmaker has to step up in a game like this. Etling was 10 of 17 for 188 and a couple of touchdowns. He didn't throw any picks. But his completion rate, again, isn't stellar. We got to see a little bit of the backup Miles Brennan. He completed 66% of his passes. In our preseason preview, I talked a lot about Devin White returning, and now he'd be an integral part of this LSU defense.
Right.
And he really stepped up. 13 tackles, 1 for loss, made a ton of noise in the passing game, and he almost had a great interception, too. But overall, I think LSU kind of underestimated their opponent in this one.
Yeah, I agree. One, another hangover sort of game.
Absolutely.
After last week, just getting routed.
Syracuse was able to rack up 300 yards in the air.
That's a surprising stat against LSU in any capacity.
We borderline gushed about how fast their secondary was.
Oh yeah, and year after year after year.
And it's just I don't know where they were in this game. And their defense played great too. Syracuse, their defense, they were able to keep it close at night in Death Valley, which is a lot more than a lot of teams can say.
No
really.
kidding.
And back to what I was saying earlier, I mean, even in today's climate, with the SEC being so down like it is, I think it's easy for fans to still have that bias and to kind of throw a shoulder to teams like Syracuse. But the Orange, they're well coached. They came ready to play, and the Tigers just ended up on top in this one. I think Syracuse really could have ended up winning this game very easily.
I agree with you. LSU is an interesting team right now. I did want to I found an update on Geis. So he did have what they're calling a sprained knee against Mississippi State and was not expected to play in this game, actually. But he had a good practice on Thursday. He sort of talked his way into the lineup, got to play. Probably not the best decision. Probably better to just sit it out.
I mean,
he's out against Troy this week. So.
I was gonna say they have Troy next week, so maybe he just wanted to get in there for the Power 5 non-conference game.
Yeah, right. Just get a little more tape, maybe.
Maybe. I think they're gonna win the game against Troy next week, no problem. You said Geis isn't gonna play. Hopefully, they can get the backup some time. Hopefully, Williams kind of gets his mojo on a little bit.
Sure.
Week 6, LSU has to go to Gainesville and play Florida. Ooh. So they do well to escape Troy injury-free, obviously. So here's to hoping for the Tigers.
No kidding. I mean, you talked about, no interceptions in this game. Look for that to change down in the swamp in a couple weeks. All right, man. Well, this was a crazy week, I just want to say, as far as just, it felt like a almost absolute balance of completely insane, down-to-the-wire games, and then just like should be blowout hangovers, then kind of sprinkled in with 2 blowouts.
Absolutely. Well, before we sign off, I just want to get to one thing real quick. Cue the cheesy music. I just wanted to go ahead and get to our Who Took the Biggest L segment.
Yeah, please.
We sent out a Twitter poll to all of you followers. Thank you all for voting. Thank you all for
good turnout.
Absolutely, thank you all. We had great fun looking at you guys' votes and seeing who you guys thought took the biggest L this week. Let's go ahead and go through the contestants. We have the Vanderbilt Commodores, obviously getting beat down.
Yep.
59-0 by Alabama. We have the Heartbreak Hogs, lose for a 6th year in a row, really. In OT to the Aggies. We have the Kentucky Wildcats, who just could not get it done again against Florida. And we have the Mississippi State Bulldogs, who took a trouncing between the hedges.
Yeah.
And with 12 votes cast, thank you all again very much, it looks like our winner is Mississippi State.
Well, I can get down with that, mainly just in terms of the expectations. We can go through and we knew that the Arkansas game was going to be just like insanity. Vanderbilt, we knew they were going to put up a fight, or we thought they were going to put up a fight. It didn't happen. Kentucky, we were just like not ecstatic, but it was crazy that they were, in a pretty commanding lead for the entire game. But Mississippi State was the one team out of these 4 that was like, this team could really do something. Still could, but yeah, I could agree with that, with the expectations being what they were.
I can too. Mississippi State got away with 41% of the votes. Vanderbilt came in second with 25% of the votes, and Arkansas and Kentucky tied with 17% each.
Wow.
My pick was Kentucky just because of just how gut wrenching it was.
Yeah, and it was at home.
Absolutely.
Like
yeah. Which, by the way, I don't know why we kept saying it was going to be in the swamp last week.
Did we?
Yeah, we did. It was in Lexington. We're so dumb sometimes, man.
There's a lot of games to cover. We're still getting our feet wet with this, but
still a little green around the gills.
Oh yeah, but I kind of wish it was in the swamp, just for all those. I saw there were kids wearing helmets and people with face paint and just people just head in their hands, and apparently a lot of people stuck around. But yeah, I don't know. That was a tough way to see a team lose. I probably would have gone with Kentucky as well, especially with 31 straight.
Well, thank you again to all of you very much for bearing with us for another kind of longer episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Mitch, thank you very much for staying up late with me tonight.
Absolutely. Anytime. It is what I do.
All right. Any closing thoughts on week 4, man?
Not really, man. It was as crazy as I think we had forecasted it to be. Really shakes things up. We only got one undefeated team in the East. Is Alabama the only undefeated West team?
Alabama is the only undefeated West team, and Georgia's the only undefeated East.
That is a wild place to be. We will see where we are next week.
Wouldn't it be very interesting if those two teams met in Atlanta?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe we just predicted the future?
It'd be really crazy to see them both in the playoff, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Don't.
What if it's, really quick, what if it, by some weird stretch, it's probably not going to be because Oklahoma plays TCU, but I just flashed in my brain of Oklahoma, TCU, Georgia, Alabama, but that's impossible.
Oh my God.
No way that happens.
We would have some sort of college football civil war if that happened.
I'd do an extra episode and just like live watch those games because probably be the most bananas football.
We'd have to look into some Periscope broadcasts.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh man, well, always write to us at askthebottlecast or askthebottlecast@gmail.com. It's been a very long day.
Oh, absolutely.
Follow us on Twitter. Write to us on Twitter at askthebottle. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes, on SoundCloud. Please leave us a rating. Go on there and leave us a review on iTunes. We would very much appreciate it. My name is Clint Childers.
And I'm Mitch. Oh, so sorry.
Oh, you're good. I was just going to say how far away you are again.
Go for it.
Hey, that man is Mitch Davis. He's really far away. He's a Georgia Peach.
I am. And thank you all, again, for tuning in. Feels kind of like you're staying up late with us. But wherever you're listening, hope you're having a good day. I hope you're looking forward to week 5. Thank y'all so much.
Absolutely. We'll see you next week.